Okay, and then I'm going to click next, and I can choose to limit to list, but the main thing we're going to choose is allow multiple values. We want to allow multiple treatments in an appointment. So I'm checking allow multiple values. And remember, it's a wizard, so I can always go back to the start to remember all my choices. It's a lookup field called service abbreviations. We're going to type in the values we want. Those are the values we want. We can always edit this. Looks like I have them all correct. T1 to T14. Click next. And the label for my lookup field, service abbreviation. That's good. And now when I click finish, it's going to do all the work for me that I would have had to figure out on my own. So now I click finish. And if I want to see what work it did for me, I can come click on this lookup tab. And I see, oh, the row source is a semicolon separated list of all the items. It's of a value list. So rather than me having to figure out what lookup properties, the wizard helped do all this for me. Now let's see the effect of this when going back to datasheet view, just to see what this has done for me now in the appointments. So I go back to datasheet view of the appointments, saving my changes. Yep, I'm going to save the changes. Now let's go to that service abbreviation, which should be showing up here right before treatment number. And let's see the effect of that. Oh, look at that. Multiple things that I can check. This is the effect of having multiple selections available. When I choose them, it separates them by comma, and you can just go randomly assign some treatments for an appointment just to see the effect of that particular type of lookup. A multiple values allowed lookup. And let's see if I could type them in. Can I type them in? Let's start typing T dash. Oh, no, it doesn't let me type in anything. I have to select it from the list with checkboxes. So even though I see this separated by commas, I have to use the checkboxes to enter them. So enter whatever random ones you want just to practice using that for my services. So now it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense why I have a treatment number here and a treatment number here. Well, we're not worried about a perfect database. We're just learning about how we can make a lookup value. So there we have, using lookups, adjusting the design of the appointments table. Okay, let's go on to our next modification of our, we're going to go back to the vendors table now. I can remember, it's always good to close any tables when you're done with them. Yes.
Every time that I've entered the data type, it switches it back to short text.
Oh yeah, yeah, it will show short text. So if I go back here, if I go back to design view, it does say short text. The only way you know now after that it's a lookup is you click the lookup tab, and if you see this, then you know that the wizard did its thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you will still see short text. So that's kind of what, it's kind of confusing. Lookup wizard just means I'm going to make you short text, but I'll help you set this part up. So rather than you having to figure out how to make all this work. But you're welcome to explore all this, and that's basically how I learned databases. I just started Access and started playing with it and saw examples out there and was very confused until I went through it more carefully. Okay, so we're done with appointments. We made that one modification. So I can close appointments, saving my changes. And now we're going to come back to veterinary vendors, and we're going to add another column to that. So right click veterinary vendors. Let's come back to design view of the veterinary vendors table. We see our product type that we did before. That's the lookup part of it. But we're going to add a field at the very end. A blank, go down to the blank row, and we're going to add a field called total amount. Now this one, we're not going to choose short text, we're going to choose calculated. Remember how we did that in a query? We can actually have the table do a calculated column for us. So let's go choose calculated here, and it will pop up an expression builder. Just like an Excel formula, We're going to use the expression builder. Here's the easy way to use it. I don't even have to remember the square brackets. I can just double click on cost, and I want to multiply cost by quantity. So I use the asterisk for multiply, and then double click on quantity. There is the formula that it creates for me.
What data type is it under?
It's calculated. So click calculated, and this should pop up. If you click the calculated data type, this should pop up. And then double click cost, asterisk, and double click quantity. I could have typed this in, but I'm using the double clicks to fill in with the square brackets. So there's my formula. Just like we did this in that query, this is a way of having the table actually automatically calculate that as soon as I enter data. So I click OK, and it is a calculated field. But let's go back to general, and let's see if I can choose my format. Let's choose a, do we have a number format? Let's choose currency format. Since it's going to be a cost, let's choose currency format for that total amount. So it still is calculated, but I add to the format, I change that instead of leaving it empty. Choose currency format. Now when I view my table in datasheet view, saving my changes, over here at the end, look at that. My total amount is a nice calculated number. And watch what happens if I happen to change my quantity to say 51, total amount automatically gets updated. Very much like an Excel formula now as I enter data. So your calculated field is like the Excel formula that you saw back there. I can Control-Z undo back to 50.
You type currency into where?
Oh, in the, I'll go back to that.
In the caption?
In the total amount, general format currency.
Okay.
And it actually put double there once I chose currency. So choose currency as my format, and then it comes out nicely. Now one more thing I want to do here, and this is where databases are much better than Excel in this way. It will not, once I set the validation rules on anything, it keeps me from entering bad numbers into my formulas. So we're going to select quantity, and we don't want to allow them to enter an invalid quantity, like a negative number. To do that, I don't have to change the data type, but I come down here to validation rule in the properties down below. The validation rule of the quantity looks like this. It should be greater than 0, that's greater than symbol, and then 0, and then the word and then less than or equal to 1,000. That is my validation rule for the quantity. This is where databases make sure that somebody doesn't enter bad data into our table, because bad data in the table corrupts and messes up our queries. So we don't want that to happen. And this is the responsibility of the person designing any database. If you're ever working with a database in the future and someone says, wait a minute, somebody entered a bad value in that customer number, your answer should be, why didn't the database people design it to make sure people couldn't type bad values in those areas, in those fields? This is up to the database designer. So if you ever find a database that's letting you type in bad values, it's not your fault. It's their fault for allowing bad values. You find this all over the place. On websites, and this is where security of websites, this is how websites gets hacked, because people allow you to type anything in, like on the address or on the username, and if they've done it poorly, people that know how to break databases can actually hack into the site that way. There's a whole set of courses on how to protect websites because of people not designing the database correctly. Now, right now, if we put in that validation rule, watch what happens when I go try to enter bad information. If I go to datasheet view, saving my changes, I go to my quantity, and let's try entering 5,000 in quantity. I get a horrible, intimidating message from Microsoft. One or more values prohibited by the validation rule set for veterinary vendor's quantity, enter a value that the expression for this field can accept. That is a horrible error message. We want to make a nice, friendly error message. To do that, I go back to design view. Oh, of course, it won't let me go because it has a bad value. I can Control Z back to 50. Now let's go back to design view. And let's make it a nicer message here. In the validation text, let's make it a nice message like, please enter a positive number less than, or how about 1,000 or less? 1,000 or less. A much friendlier error message, especially with the word please in there. You always want to be nice to your data entry people because they're being paid horrible low wages to enter data, and you don't want to scare them away with intimidating messages from Microsoft. So now that I've had a validation text, now let's go back and try to enter incorrect data, saving my changes. And let's go enter now a 5,000 again. I try to enter it. Oh, now I get the more friendly message. Please enter a positive number, 1,000 or less. Sadly, what I think Access should do is once I click OK, it should reset it back to the original value, but it doesn't. Control Z will let me go back to my previous value. If it rejects me, it should reset the number, but it doesn't. So that's how you then have validation rules. And if we were properly doing this database, we would have validation rules on every single field in my table to make sure that they didn't enter the wrong thing. There's one more thing we want to do here on the veterinary vendors table. We want to make sure they don't accidentally leave vendor name blank. We want to have something there because why have a name? Why have a veterinary vendor without a name? We need that when we generate receipts or invoices. So we want this to be a required field. Can you guess where I change the requiredness of that?
The required.
Look here, down in the properties, required. We change that to yes. And now I can't enter something new without there being a vendor name. Let's see how that works. If I go back to home, datasheet view, save my changes. And let's start entering a new vendor without putting a name in there. We'll put it at 123 Asbury Road. And before entering a name, I try to go to another record. Look at that. It forces me, it says, you must enter something in the vendor name field. And so it won't let me go to any other record until I've entered that. That's how that required works. And I can Control Z that to not be entering a new one, and then I can go back to design view. So that's how that works. One more thing we want to do is we're kind of lazy. We don't want to get carpal tunnel. And if we don't have to type the veterinary or the product type, but have a default value, we want to do that. So down here under product type, the properties there, notice there is a default value. They would like us to set the default value to be VAC. I don't put quotes around it, but if I click off of that, it does put quotes around that for me. So now I can have a default location. We can even have a default city to be Dubuque, Iowa. Let's put Dubuque for our default city. Or you get to choose your hometown if you like. Default value for state, we'll put Iowa. Default value for zip code, we could put 52001. Yeah.
How do I delete the row with? It's like I'm trying to delete the row.
Oh yeah.
Here and
You have to Control Z or
Okay.
or delete every field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't let me
Right,
click
yeah.
on it and then delete it.
Yeah, another annoying thing about it, if you don't know that, Control Z, you have to do that. It won't let you go because you've started a new vendor.
Mm-hmm.
Now another way to do it would be to enter a fake name and then delete the record. That's another way to do it.
Yeah.
So here I'm putting a default value. Now let's see the effect of the default value. Let's go over to datasheet view, save my changes. And now see in the new portion, anytime I want to enter anything new, it has the default value already there for me, saving me typing time. So the default value, if you're doing data entry, again, if you're doing it for somebody and they don't have a default value, you could suggest, hey, database people, I know you could have a default value there, and they'll say, hey, you must know something about databases. We're going to pay you more because you're smart. Went to that wonderful college that taught you about more than just PowerPoint, Word, and Excel. Because databases, remember, they are everywhere. Every company has super important data being stored in their database. Okay, so we did calculated field, we did required. Now, let's go on and do something even more dangerous. Time for some danger. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to close the veterinary tables, saving my changes. Remember, one of the most powerful things about databases is the way you can create queries. Let's go to query design, and we're going to create a query on the veterinary vendors table. So I'm just going to double click veterinary vendors table. And the only field I'm going to care about is the product type. Now right now it is a select query, and select queries are safe. If I just click view, I see all my product types show up. Now we're going to get dangerous. I can change it to an update query just by clicking here. I can click it into the change the query type to update. Now I get an update to line here, and I can put VAC there. It put quotes around it for me. And now if I run this query, it's going to make changes to my data. If I click run, it says you're about to update 5 rows. I'm going to click no because I know that I have typed something in there already. So rather than have it change it without any criteria, I'm going to put in here is no. What that means is only update it to vaccination if there's not something there. This is a powerful thing that will keep me from overwriting existing product types, only filling in vacation to the ones that I have left blank. Now when I run it, it says, oh, there are no changes because everything does have something in it already. I'm going to go ahead and click yes, but let's go back to datasheet view now on my veterinarian vendors. Let's remove a data type. Let's go ahead and remove that from the canine rabies and remove it from the feline rabies. And now I'll close my table. Now let's run the query again. And I have to go to the exclamation point query. Now it's warning me, oh, I am going to update 2 rows because I had deleted the product type in 2 of them. So see how powerful this is? It can do a change across your entire database. Remember, if I had no criteria, it would make that change to everything, even though I've already entered the different product types. That's why this is so dangerous. And the nice thing about it, when I do run it, it does give me a warning of how many things are going to be changed. Okay, so I'm going to click, doesn't matter since it's not going to change anything anyway. Now I'm going to save this as, Control S, save this query as, and we are on page AC3-26. Save it as AC3-26. And we'll call it update VAC product type. That criteria is null. Remember what that means. That only updates it where it's blank. Without any criteria, it will update all of them, wiping out current values. Now, an even more dangerous one is a delete. I can delete records from a database, from a table, but we're not going to write any delete queries. But notice I can always change my query type. If I come back to it, it remembers what I was updating things to. So the update query is the dangerous query, and that's why it shows a little exclamation point on it. If I double click on it, it'll warn me, are you sure you want to do this? This is where you always think to yourself, ask your IT person, do we have a backup of what we have in our database? And if they look at you like, what's a backup? Get there. They don't deserve to be your IT support person. Anyone in IT should know databases have to be backed up because they are the foundation of your business in many ways. And of course, you have to keep them secure and keep it confidential, all that kind of stuff. So we've made an update query. Now let's see what else they want us to do here in Project 3. They do mention the delete query in the book, but we're not going to make that. We've changed some field sizes. We made a field required. Boy, we're making good progress here. Default value. I also realized we need to put a validation rule in our veterinary vendors. There's a validation rule we need to go back to. So right click on vendors, design view, and in the product type, the validation rule there should be, even though we're limited list, let's go ahead and set the validation rule to be this. Equal, let's try this, VAC or MC or SUP. I think I might have to put quotes around things or equals. Let's see what happens. Oh, it seems to be happy with that. I don't think it's case sensitive. Let's find out. Oh, and let's go ahead and put for a friendly validation text, please enter or select one of VAC or MC or SUP. A friendly message rather than the intimidating, evil Microsoft message. Now let's see what this looks like. Going to datasheet view, saving my changes, verifying my validation rule, and let's see if I try to enter something else. Let's try ABC. Am I going to get a message? Oh, it isn't an item in the list. It offers to let me edit the items in the list. I'm going to choose no. I have to do Control Z in order to go back to the original settings. So I don't get to see my message because remember back in the lookup I had chose it limit to list. That basically bypasses my validation rule when I already had done a limit to the list. Okay, so we've set validation rules. And we've updated our tables. Let's see what else they want to do. Oh, I realized we had forgotten, or actually, no, I do have Global Pet Supply. That's right. We had deleted Sanchez. That's why we're down to only 5. Remember, Sanchez got deleted from our vendor list.
R.I.P. Sanchez.
They want us to make a slight correction here. In one of the vendors, the address was wrong. The second one should be West Haven Boulevard. West Haven Boulevard. We need to correct that. Easy peasy, just like an Excel spreadsheet. Just add that to.
Mr. Manning?
Yep.
He added words at the view guy. I made a mistake. I didn't write that right.
You can change your default city to anything you want.
Right there.
Yep. So it'll let you, if you add a new one, it'll always let you change the default, but that just saves you typing time. If most of your customers are in a particular place, you can always have a default value, but it doesn't mean you can't change that. Okay, so we've added Boulevard to the address. We've used the lookup fields already. We've used the multi-valued lookup field.
I think we're done.
And let's see here. We're not quite done yet. There's one more super important thing we're going to do. We've done the totals in the data sheet. It's already in there. And Not going to worry about grid lines, not the view of it. Or we can always change colors of things. Let's just do that for fun. To change the colors in my veterinary vendors. Having some trouble? All right.
Yeah. Right down here
Trouble in River City.
Yeah, they're like cowboy pizza and red cheese. You know where it's going? It's a musical. In the 60s.
Right. So
It's called the musical.
it thinks you're adding a new one. It doesn't have a name.
Have you seen
It's
La La
complaining
Land?
about not
What?
having a
Have
you
name.
seen La La
If you don't
Land?
want to add a new one,
Yeah.
just control Z.
Yeah, I watched it over Thanksgiving break. It's actually pretty good.
It is pretty good, except for the stupid.
Oh, right, right.
I know, dude. I was so ticked that they watched
So,
it.
so do a control Z
Oh,
because
man.
you don't want to enter a new record. Now go back
That
to
ending's
design.
so
Dude, that ending really
And
had me.
there,
Yeah.
realistic color, right? City.
No,
change
but
the
she's
color.
like.
No, don't ruin it for him.
Whatever city you
know what
want.
happened.
What happened?
Watched it.
Yeah, and then for zip code, you can give it.
Well, apparently she's the one in the
Okay.
fantasy. She's having a fantasy.
Yeah.
That's so stupid. Well, all fantasies.
All right, so what do we want to do now? Oh yeah, we want to change the colors of the data sheet. The colors of the font in the data sheet. How can we do that? Well, let's try just selecting everything. Let's try Control A. And over here in the Home tab, look at that. Let's see what happens if I try to change my font color. And they choose a dark purpley blue. Isn't that lovely? If I close this, I think it'll save changes. Yes. If I open it again, it remembers my font color. Now I'm not sure
Where'd you go for that?
why we care about the font color.
Control A.
I can do a Control A to select everything,
Yeah.
and then change my font color. I can even change my shading, background color. Normally I leave that alone because I don't care to fancy up my vendor list, but you have that capability. Okay, now, well, I think, let's see, we'll start a query because we're getting close to the end. Let's do one query dealing with those multi-valued fields. That's okay. Let's create a query now. Now that we've modified our structure a bit, let's go to Create, Query Design, the Appointments table, double click. And what I want to see in my appointments table is appointment ID, the patient ID, the appointment date, and the treatment number. Remember treatment number, that was something, that wasn't the multi-valued field. The multi-valued field was the abbreviation. So let's go ahead and also add the service abbreviation. I think I see what they wanted us to do. They actually wanted us to make treatment number the lookup, but we have two now. Now, without any criteria, let's view our results. There we see our treatment numbers and our service abbreviations. Let's go back here now and add to their criteria. Add to the criteria. They don't have a criteria. They just have the multi-valued field in the result. Okay. They don't ask us to do any criteria. Go ahead.
When I hit view, it won't show the service. It just is blank.
That's because you probably haven't changed it in your appointments table. So let's go ahead and save this query as AC3-42. AC3-42. We'll call it query with multi-values. Multi-value field. Now, the reason you're not seeing anything there is because you haven't changed your table. So let's go ahead and go back to your table in the appointments table, and you can add whatever you like in your service abbreviation.
Is query, what was the title of the?
I call it AC3-42 query with multi-values. Query with multi-value field.
Just add anything on?
Yeah, pick any of those, just so then in the query you'll see some results.
My results.
So, treatment number is now sitting side by side with service abbreviation. This is the more meaningful service, and this should probably be called services given or something instead of one treatment number. But now you know how to create multi-valued fields. If you run a query on it, it works just like I'm viewing the table. It shows my multi-value field. And we will stop there. On Monday, we'll be looking at a thing called referential integrity.
Nice. And we're getting out 1 minute early.
We're not going to do that in 1 minute. That is too complex to do in 1 minute.
Watch.
The one thing I'll say about referential integrity is we don't want patients to be orphaned. Right now, I can go in here and enter a non-existent owner. I can enter owner O-20. I can fat finger the 0, and now poor Pepper is an orphan, going to be lost, abandoned, because we've assigned a non-existent owner. That is because we haven't established referential integrity. On Monday, we'll establish referential integrity so Pepper cannot be lost and given to a non-existent owner. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
One more class. What a business department meeting at 3. When did that get scheduled?
Josh, you lied to me. You said we were gonna get out early.
Yeah, Josh, you lied to us.
You lied to me.
I think we did not.